The Business Hub with EACS.com. Effective IT for business.
Well, hello and welcome to the Business Hub studios here in the heart of Cambridge. I'm Mark Peters.
I'm Ian McKendrick.
And this is where we do it. This is where it all comes from. You want to take a look around, you can see all of our special equipment and switches and buttons and faders that I'm slowly but surely explaining to Ian what they all do.
I'm learning.
Yeah, behind us you see our array of production equipment and different effects and things, just really to try and make us sound a lot better than we are. But the Business Hub itself is the brainchild of jointly myself and Ian, really. We've been working together now for about 3 years, mainly social media. When we first came together, I was running the radio station here in Cambridge. Ian's the social media expert that was talking across the country. We crossed paths because Ian was helping us lift the profile of the radio station through social media, and after a very short space of time it became apparent that despite his need of wearing scarves even through the thick of summer, he's actually quite a helpful and knowledgeable chap. There you go, that's the only nice thing I'm going to say about you today, though.
How much is that going to cost?
Yeah, exactly. And since then, really, the Business Hub idea came to fruition about, we must be approaching a year ago now when we started planning that.
Yeah, the idea is about a year old.
Yeah.
We started bouncing the idea and then we decided to jump into getting the Business Hub out in March. 7th of March we launched.
So how it works is we basically purchase a block of airtime from the radio station and present the show on a weekly basis. The show is completely self-contained and we try and get some of the most interesting guests in, we can actually say this, in the world on the show. We've had everybody from the local corner shop manager through to the managing director of Land Rover UK, to international guests, Doug Richard of previous Dragon's Den fame. Celebrities we've had on the show.
Gilly Goulden.
Yeah.
Who's the lady on Countdown?
Celebrities.
Yeah, she's a celebrity.
Maybe.
Gilly Goulden is.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Sorry, Jelly. Thanks for coming on the show. All sorts of different people. Even Derek Acora is coming up on the show. Do you know who he is?
Yeah, he's the spooky guy, isn't he?
Yeah, the psychic medium. Strangely enough, we didn't know that he was coming up on the show until a few weeks ago.
But he knew.
He knew. He always takes my punchlines every single time.
Yeah, I'm getting used to it now.
But Ian will fill you on why he's so interested in being part of the Business Hub as well, because Ian, out of the both of us, is the intense networker, if you like. This is a great opportunity to bring all of those network connections into a really valuable arena, isn't it?
Yeah, I love networking. When I set my own business up nearly 4 years ago, I spent a lot of time on the network circuit, and one thing I could never get over was that when you sat down and got people talking about themselves and about their business, and more importantly about what they've learned in their journey of setting their business up, with some really interesting nuggets of information. So I've always asked for people to share their pearls of wisdom with me, and I suppose I started doing that on Audio Boo well over a year ago, maybe a couple of years ago now. No, it would have been a year ago because they're just over a year old. But that was really the idea, and then it was bringing all that together with what Mark knows about commercial broadcasting and about how the radio works, and bringing those two ideas together, we've ended up with a show that's the popularity is rather taken us by surprise. You know, we're seeing over 4,000 downloads of our podcast every week. Every show we do goes out as a podcast. It's downloaded up to 4,000 times every week, and we've got some really good news because the show's going a little bit further now, isn't it?
It certainly is, yeah. We've just found that we're sort of outgrowing everything, really. We're physically outgrowing the studios, like this KFC. But we're now very, very proud to say that this is the first step in the expansion of the Business Hub, because this show that we're recording now, that you've been seeing us put together, is going to be the first show that's going to go out as a network show across multiple radio stations. It's only 2 at the moment, but there are more coming on board this side of Christmas, and we're hopefully going to be expanding even quicker in the new year. So this show today will be the first one that's broadcast both on Star Radio Cambridgeshire and also on KLFM, which is Norfolk's #1 commercial radio station, which has a very, very big percentage reach across Norfolk, something like 40% reach across Norfolk, which is actually a surprising amount of people. So we'll be putting the Business Hub out on both stations this coming Sunday for the first time ever, and yeah, it's really exciting. Even people in Hunstanton on the beach will now be able to listen to the Business Hub. How about that?
Yeah, sunny honey. Yeah.
So we could maybe get a trip out to Seal Island.
Well, that'd be nice.
Interview the seals. Be interesting, and more interesting than some of the guests guests we've had on here. No, I'm only joking.
Well, funnily enough, though, talking about the guests, they are the most important part of our show, aren't they? Without them, we don't have a show. And it just blows me away how every time we get someone in and we ask that magic question, what are your 3 pearls of wisdom, Mark and I normally get blown away by the freely given advice that they generously come along and share with our listeners.
I think the feel we really wanted to get for the show as well is that it's not a stuffy, I can say this, Radio 4 type show, and I don't mean that in a really negative way, but what I mean is it's a very different, fresh look at business. You have myself, who my career has been 15 years in commercial radio, so in terms of business and entrepreneurship, lots of ideas, but no idea how to use it. So I'm asking the questions that well, kind of, what should we say, the layman might ask, and Ian has a much more strategic view of business. So when you put those two elements together, they result, I think, in some of the, well, hopefully, most entertaining business interviews that you'll hear. Sometimes it's funny.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not. But it's a very different, fresh look at business, and that's really what we wanted to achieve. We didn't want to do a straight-laced show. I mean, one of the interviews you've seen here today is with the Cambridge Family Law Practice. You might think a very difficult area to get any kind of...
and what's that got to do with business?
Well,
but it's got a lot. No, but it's got a lot to do with business, isn't it?
Okay,
Family law practice.
Yeah.
You think to yourself, well, what have they got to share that would be useful to anybody in business? And as it turns out, a whole lot.
Yeah,
brilliant, absolutely brilliant interview this morning.
People getting divorced, people being taken to court for various different reasons, and some really interesting stuff coming up from those guys, by the way, in the future, about some of these high-profile cases that you've been seeing with, what should we say, high-profile sportsmen. So some really, really interesting stuff on the way on the hub as well. But yeah, every single week the show is so diverse, so different, with such a, in certain cases, a bizarre range of guests that we have on the show, and I love it for that reason. It's just, it just makes the whole thing so much more interesting for me.
Yeah. And both of us feel that there's a lot of business programs out there that are targeted really to the boardroom. They're targeted towards sort of like board disputes or settling things with shareholders and talking about the top FTSE 500 companies and all of that kind of thing. And they get very sort of hoity-toity, I suppose is the term, where really sort of 98%, I think it was quoted, 98% of revenue that's generated in this country from business comes from small businesses that aren't really interested in that kind of thing, and what they really want to hear is what other business people are doing, and we feel it's our job to go out and find those stories and bring them to you and present them in an engaging and fun way, but at the same time pack the whole hour with as much useful information for you guys and girls as we can as possible.
As they say, the sun always shines on the business hub.
The Business Hub with EACS.com. Effective IT for business.